Okay, so we have everyone here tonight, and we're going to learn about dispatching, and we're going to talk about some topics. I wish we all had time to discuss all of the major topics. We have some crazy stories we might share, some crazy questions. Hopefully, I really want you guys to be thinking of some really good questions. And yeah, let's get started. I think that all of us in here are beginner dispatchers, and that is something where if you really just take this time for you as a beginner to really focus and learn the knowledge behind the industry, with that knowledge, you will be able to apply so much more than what you thought originally. So like you were literally, the more you do this, the better you get at it. And it's one of those repetition kind of things. Now, when I say repetition, I do not mean that it's the same job over and over again. This job is far from boring. It is far from the same repeated, I'm going to make the same phone call every day or whatever. That is so different every day. You never know who you're going to be talking to in this industry. You might be talking with a shipper 1 second. You might be talking with a broker or a driver or anybody, literally, in insurance. There's all kinds of stuff. So I just want us to kind of talk about a few topics we have. The first one we're going to discuss is negotiations. And then we're going to discuss ways to get new carriers. And then we're going to open the floor for you guys. I know that I just wanted to do some deep diving into negotiations. I want to, if you were in the class today when Miss Juanisha booked a load, I want you to think about how the different styles that one has with negotiation, just like one salesperson versus the next one is not going to have the same strategy or the same approach or the same reaction or the same connection with that person. But today, Miss Juanisha did a really good job being her silly self. She was super funny on the phone, and the broker was cracking up. He was loving it, and he was even trying to pull favors for us. Like when you build a friendly connection with the broker on the phone and you laugh about something or you can relate with something, that makes it a little bit easier to go in and try to get what you want, right? So for Miss Juanisha, she might not have known it, but she was just letting herself be herself, and her personality was shining right through. She didn't call from a script. She didn't sound like a robot. She just, hey, we're calling to see if we can find a load in this area. And what she did today, the reason why I want to bring this up is because there's several approaches. Even tonight, I can tell you about different negotiation approaches and different strategies and styles. But until you really learn this and this industry, you know what you're talking about and you can do it pretty well, that's where you want to get into that spot, that point where you talking to a broker doesn't scare you, and that's okay. It shouldn't. Brokers are not our boss. They're not our customers. They're just regular people. But the thing that Miss Juanisha did today was we were all 10 of us. There was 10 interns on the load boards searching for the same driver. Okay. And this was all of us were putting our heads together, and we were coming up with 0 things on the load board. And this week has been a really challenging week for us. I'm not going to lie. We haven't had many loads booked because we have had drivers in really challenging areas. We've had drivers take loads from other dispatchers. We've had drivers that have their truck in the shop. There's so many cases that come across this situation. Now, Miss Juanisha looked and took a step back and said, okay, who do we need to contact to get some loads not on the load board? Because we cannot as dispatchers depend just on these load boards. So what I did, I have an email list of all these hotshot brokers that I work with. I sent out an email to at least 10 brokers asking what they have, if there's anything available. Then Miss Juanisha took it a step further and just called a very major brokerage and said, hey, and this is how lucky it was. It might have been luck. It might have been a great, encounter, whatever. She literally said, I was just calling to see if you have any loads from Arizona going anywhere for a hot shot. Literally, she was like going anywhere except for a couple of places. And the lady on the phone, she said, yeah, actually we have a couple going from Phoenix to Kansas City and a couple of other ones. And she was like, deal, sign me up. That's what we want. It was before they even posted it on the load board, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So she got connected with the right broker who was in charge of that load, and we booked the load from Phoenix to Kansas City, Missouri. That was a really nice load, $2,100. It was a really good price. And she got over $2 rate per mile, or right at $2 rate per mile, which is satisfied for our driver. Our driver was very pleased with the rate. And
almost got more.
but that's where I'm gonna stop.
That supervisor wasn't there, we would have got what we wanted.
That's where I'm gonna.
He was loving me. He was loving me.
Yeah,
and there he was.
You know, I just, you know, you got to get a little rapport with him. I told him I'll sing at his wedding if he wasn't married.
Yeah.
I told him they said I sound like Beyonce, so you know, just joking with him and stuff, making him laugh a little bit, loosen up.
It was,
you know, you're gonna see who you're gonna get when you with brokers. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes they'll be a little, forget my language, assholes.
Yeah, no.
I kind of match energies with whoever I'm talking to, and then I'll loosen them up a little bit. So if you're gonna be rude to me, I'm gonna be rude to you, and then I'm gonna make you laugh.
Oh my God.
Kind of building a rapport.
You're gonna be great when you talk to shippers soon. Anyway, sorry for.
I'm ready for it. I like a good challenge. You know, you're not in competition with nobody but yourself. So you're just gonna have to build yourself up. Sometimes, you know, these people are gonna piss you off. You're gonna want to throw that computer out the window. A trick that I learned in customer service is to put a mirror right in front of you, a little compact mirror. Smile as you're talking to yourself.
I think you're gonna be good with the gatekeepers if you do that. If you got a broker.
Smile, look, talk to yourself and look at yourself. Dang, I look good. Suicide in the mirror. I'm killing myself. Just look at yourself in the mirror, smile, and you talk and stuff like that. Guess what? You're gonna sound happy to these brokers and stuff, and they're gonna like, oh, I like her energy. Yeah. I like his energy. Okay, cool. I'm gonna work with you. You nice.
It's a breath of fresh air for these guys that are on the phone and dealing with sassy dispatchers that are, why can't I have this rate per mile? Or, you know, but I want to talk about what Miss Juanisha did in her negotiation. Because the reason why I'm talking about this specific situation is because it was a strategy that worked, first of all. It was a strategy that is different than what I traditionally negotiate for, which shows me as someone who's learning and always wanting to learn from new perspectives and understand that that was a really great approach that she did. And I can learn something from that. But also we want to highlight the fact that when you bring up the price in any conversation, it's awkward. You know, it's a little awkward to talk about price or money in general. But, you know, when she was telling, you know, she mentioned like lunch for your driver or just an extra $50 would help, or, you know, that kind of thing. So we started out with asking for $250 rate per mile. That's what Juanisha said, because he asked her the rate. First of all, he said, what is the rate that you guys are looking to be at? And she said, well, our driver really needs $250 a rate per mile. And he was like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that. Like, I could easily post this load for $2 and get it moved. And she was like, are you like, she just kept very, very professional, but yet she was like, well, that's weird because gas prices are really high. And because like X, Y, and Z, my driver wants to be home to his family or whatever. There's a lot of ways you can give so many reasons why the driver needs more money. But here's the thing. And I can say this because I've worked in a position in this industry from all different angles. Okay. The broker is the one that you are trying to negotiate with. However, you also have to make sure that you're negotiating for the correct amount that your driver will take. There's nothing worse than getting a really good negotiation with a broker, then the driver still disapproves of the rate per mile. That's hard to deal with too. but because I can say this from all different industries, the broker is always going to have a strategy on the opposite side as you. So we have a strategy to get the highest rate. Well, they're trying to get the cheapest rate. And because in this industry, I talk a lot about brokers, because we have to know how they play the game in order for us to negotiate. Now, for us, in this case, we were dealing with another broker who was in charge of the load, and he had to like get approval from his boss about the rate and so forth. Now, the rate, if it was up to the guy Juanisha was talking to on the phone, he would have given that to her for 2,500 if she asked, probably, but he went and strategized this rate per mile. So he had to do some math. He was like, hold on, let me calculate that. And then he was trying to go down on the number, and she caught him and she said, no, you can't go back on your word. You already said, 1175 or whatever it was. And so we want to build these relationships with the brokers, but it also depends on what our driver is willing to accept. Our situation with this load could have looked entirely different with a different driver. And that's what I want you guys to understand. And this is really good stuff, because a lot of people don't realize that as a dispatcher, you are literally the one that is doing all of these financial negotiations on behalf of your driver, but they're always going to want top dollar. And so with that being said, when you approach your negotiation, the negotiation could technically be the same, but depending on the driver and depending on what your rate per mile is that you're trying to reach for your driver, your negotiation is going to look completely different every time. So the thing that I want to share with you guys is that every load is different and unique in its own way, just like every driver is different and unique in their own way. Each driver is going to have different preferences, just like each load is going to have a different commodity and a different broker most likely involved. So we just want to keep that in mind about who we're dealing with, whose game we're playing, because we also had a situation where my interns got to see the broker playing the field with a load. He gave one of my team members one answer. Then the next team member he gave a completely different answer to. Turns out we lost the load. After he told us he wouldn't give us the load, he posted again for cheaper on the load board to see if somebody else will come along to take it for cheaper. So yes, that sucked, because my interns were about to secure the load, and then the broker just gives it out from underneath them. Then a slap in the face when they're trying to get it done for cheaper. It's the same load. So in order for us to outsmart situations in that case, because you better believe I called the broker and was like, hey, what's up with this? You're just doing it to make it cheaper for someone else. That is not cool. And I will call them out on it, which is reminds me of what I was going to say earlier. And the reason why I can say this is because out of all the people in this industry, the driver, you guys, is the one doing all the work. They're the one doing the actual transportation of the goods. So in my personal opinion, this is just my personal opinion, the driver needs to be the highest paid person in each transaction. And if you are a dispatcher that has that as your goal in mind, you will fight and get high prices for your driver every time. But right now, statistically speaking, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, anyone on here, right now, the broker is the one in charge of the finances in the whole show. Okay? Because the broker is in charge of the budget from the owner of the load. So whoever owns the load that your driver is going to take, your broker is in communication with the owner and they've given them a budget. Okay, so that is something to keep in mind. Now, the dispatcher is the last person that should be taking from the pie. And I can say that as a dispatcher, we work just as hard as brokers, in my opinion, because we're facilitating the load the exact same way. We might not be making rate cons and verifying documents and all of that stuff, but we are handling the load. We're making sure the driver's there at pickup. There's no problems at delivery. We're communicating with whoever we need to talk to. We're turning in the paperwork. We're getting all the documents that the broker's requesting. There's so many responsibilities. So just keep that in mind as who gets a piece of this pie. As a dispatcher, we believe, I would say we believe, most of dispatchers believe the driver deserves the highest price for each transaction. Would you say that's fair, Juanisha?
Yep. And we
Okay.
get paid from the gross, not the net. But we are the last to get paid.
Yes, we only get paid on what we've negotiated. If I negotiated 21.22 for that load I did today, $2,122, then I'm going to be paid on $2,122, not 2109, or after your factoring company takes a percentage out, or after whatever fee was taken out. I'm paid on the price that I negotiated. That should all be in your agreement as well.
Mhm.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So the price that you negotiated, that's not the amount that the dispatcher, as far as myself, is gonna get paid. Do I go by the percentage that I'm charging for the load, or that's what I'm gonna get paid?
No, okay, so first of all, dispatchers, this is a common misconception. Dispatchers are only paid by the driver directly, privately. So you're never going to receive the load that you're negotiating, like for 2,100. I'm not going to see 2,100 come through any of my bank accounts or any type
Right.
of, like, I'm not handling any of their finances. But I believe what you're asking, or I might have to rephrase it, but
Yeah, what I'm asking is, I should have said, what percentage would you tell beginner dispatchers to charge for the loads, as far as for them? Is this a 6%, 7%, 8%, or
Whatever you think you worth.
yes, Miss Juanisha has charged 10% right out the gate from day one. It doesn't matter. She is a trained dispatcher. And even though if from day one, if she didn't have the experience under her belt, she was about to get it. And you couldn't tell if she was a trained years or not. You couldn't tell the difference. But yes, so the rate that we negotiate, it will be the percentage, but the percentage that you've agreed upon for your driver is something you guys talk about ahead of time. So it's not a surprise for them. Hey, oh, by the way, you owe me 10% on that load. We want to make sure and this is my suggestion, never go below 7% and don't go over 10. So I believe that a minimum of 7 or 8% is bare minimum. If you have more than one truck, though, we will make an agreement. Here's another tip. If you want to, you can make your rate negotiable. Let's say you're on the phone with a driver and you tell him and say, I normally charge this percent. I normally charge 9%, but I'm so confident I can find you a load. I'll do that first one for 5%. Or you can say, I charge 7% on average, but I can do, or I'm sorry, you can say I charge 8% on average, but I'll do 7 for you. Or you can say, let's talk about this number. I know you have to protect the percentage of your company. What number are you comfortable paying for a dispatching service? That's also okay for them to give you a number, and you are more than you're more than welcome to negotiate your percentage with your driver. I always put in there, if there's been several phone calls I've made and they ask me the percentage and then I'll get crickets afterwards. And I'm like, what is the percentage you need to be around? And we'll talk, because the problem is you don't want to lose someone's business or potential business for 1%, So if it's negotiable for them and you're flexible and able to negotiate that, then do that. But just don't go under 7% would be my biggest suggestion.
And don't do no free work. I know you see
No
that
free.
a lot. I do first load for free. No, don't do it. Don't set yourself up for failure.
Yes.
Yeah,
All
then
this
you-
work, don't spend all day on it and stuff, and they say, well, we decided not to go with the dispatcher, and they done got paid.
Yeah.
Never do anything for free. Your time is precious. Charge what you're worth and then add tax.
Mhm. Yes.
Mhm.
Did anyone else have another question?
And when negotiation, have your number in mind what you want before you call on it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got two questions. And Juanita, I think you answered it last time. You know
Which
what
one?
you know what you said you gotta get money for the deadheading, right?
Mhm.
You know what they say brokerages? They say that they'll just get 150 miles. The truck isn't doing for nothing. How do you negotiate that on your side? Because
Oh no, I don't only say nothing. I just added in with miles.
you just added it in. Oh, I got you.
Look, tell them, look. My driver got to get something. They gotta get lunch. They got
Yeah.
kids at home, man. This gas prices ain't getting no cheaper.
Because I've only heard the brokerage say 150 miles is free. I never heard it from the other side.
No.
You know.
No, but I think that would make sense because of these brokers just think that these deadhead miles are disposable. And
Mhm.
that a lot of dispatchers don't calculate that in to their consideration. So if you put that into consideration, if you want to say, my driver's deadheading an extraordinary large amount of time that's going to be put in miles, put into the deadhead of this, like I need you to understand my driver can do it, but he's deadheading a lot. And so a lot of brokers, they won't care because that they think that is disposable. But
Right.
yeah,
We
I
ain't paying about load. We ain't paying you. We pay you for the load, the miles you drive.
Yeah. One guy says 150. They're okay with that, and then anything over that, give him $50 every. Give him $50 every 100 miles or something like that. Or you're saying but you never want to ask them to go more than 150.
I do it
That's
anyway.
why-
I do it.
That's why I was asking.
yeah.
So, no, I do it anyway because there's expenses when it comes to truck. It's not just gas. You know what I'm saying? You got to pay for insurance.
Yeah. No, you just got to slide it in. That's it. Just put it
Yeah,
in
just
there.
slide it in, see what they got to
Don't
say.
even-
Oh
yeah,
no,
don't
we
even
can't do this. Okay, look, it's a touch freight. He got to tame it. He got to tarp that thing or whatever. That means he got to do some work. Oh, it's more than one stop. It's 2 stops, 1 drop. Come on now, that's too much. That's
So many
gas.
factors. It's
And
hazmat,
another,
whatever. Yeah, there's so many factors.
Oh,
Hey,
so it's
but-
hazmat. So that means I'm getting my air messed up. So I got to wear PPE, and this stuff already itchy and stuff is hot. I'm sweating up under this stuff, and there's a chance I could be exposed to the hazmat. Yeah, I need more money.
you got to make the trucker look like a victim pretty much, and then you get
Talking
that.
fast.
Yeah,
Not too
yeah, I
fast,
got
but when you talk, you're firm and you're nice.
Yeah. You got to make him look like he's a
Don't be
victim out
nervous.
there.
Don't be nervous because they can sense it's like, oh, she's nervous. So she don't know stuff.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Most of the brokers are like, you ever see Leave It to Beaver with Eddie Haskell?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how they all are. Like, you got to talk to them like that. Like, they get feisty, but you go back at them.
And you would think I would think if I heard from dispatchers and drivers all day long about how we need more money, that they would be like, okay, well, we really need to be more fair on this. But honestly, I think a broker could probably tell you all the reasons a dispatcher or a driver needs that load at a higher price. They can tell you everything under the sun. I'm sure they hear it from so many people about, oh, I need it for gas prices or I need it for this. But we have to I don't care if it's $25 more, that is lunch for your driver. And I never take the posted price that they have listed on the load board. That number is, and there's rare occasions that I take just the posted price, but that number is always negotiable. And it does sound silly if you're saying, all right, you can't just move $25 or just come on. I know it sounds silly, but $25 does matter to me, or whatever you need to say. And this is something I want to point out. Just like Eric is explaining, these rules of they're not even rules. They're myths about, not even myths, I guess, the rule that you said about 150 miles. He's throwing that out there because that is literally, there's a huge group of brokers out there that do believe that. So that means that when we call these guys, we don't know what kind of principles they're following or what kind of things they have in their head about, oh, this is free, or this, the driver doesn't need over $2 rate per mile. They don't need that, or whatever it might be. But just like each dispatcher has their own individual negotiation sales strategy, there's another person on the end of that deal that is also negotiating with you and pitching their strategies towards you. Like, the number one strategy for a broker is to say, I just don't have that much money in the load. I'm not making anything. We
I
know
hear that
that's
all
a
the time.
lie. We all know that's a lie. So we know that you're making at least something from this. And I mean, yes, there's been cases where brokers don't make anything because they're just trying to get the loads moved for their customers, but that's not the case. So normally the case would be, if a broker tells you that, you can just say, all right, well, we both know that there's a margin behind this number. I wasn't born yesterday. Like, some of these guys, I wish I could write like a little rule book of like the different strategies, just like another broker could probably write another book about our strategies and working with dispatchers. Because I'm just going to tell you right now, there is, for whatever reason, the dispatchers are frowned upon by brokers, because to them, we're just another person involved in their transaction, another person to get in the way for helping, get their driver's status update. They want to call the driver, not you, the dispatcher, or they think that you're just trying to get a piece of their pie, or whatever the case might be. They're just never very favorable. Just like from the dispatching world, people look at brokers like the villain of the situation, but they're not villains. I do it every day. Like, I literally just moved a load today. Yeah, I already told you guys about it. So it's really a matter of who. I don't want you to look at these papers or the negotiation and there's one specific way to do it, because the reality is that there's so many different ways to do this, that you literally could choose so many different strategies, so many different approaches, and it's ever changing, because at the end of the day, it literally only depends. Like, your situation as a dispatcher it depends on who's on the other end of that phone. And it depends on who you're negotiating with, who you're talking to, what your driver is willing to do. So if I had to tell you two things to remember from tonight, it's that not all loads are the same. You're not going to book the same load the same way every time. It's all different. And also, the broker is somebody we cannot underestimate, because we're playing their game. They have something we need, which is the load and the job and the money. And we have something they need, which is the driver to do the job. Okay. So we do have to work together with them. With that being said, with negotiation, and I'll get into some specific strategies, but with that being said, the negotiation really depends on the entire situation. So I'm not saying it just depends on the driver and it just depends on the broker. The negotiation has to do with what the posted price is. If it's a low rate per mile or a low rate, then you're going to push a little bit harder if it's a lower rate per mile. So, like, for example, if I was calling on a load that was posted for $1.60 per mile, which is very low, then I would do some calculations and negotiate to get as close to that $2 mark, which is still low. $2 is still low, in my opinion. But I just really have to do some math here. And knowing that I'm going to have to do a lot more work, it's going to make me press that gas pedal a little harder when I come to negotiation, because I have more to negotiate. Now, if I was coming across this load that was $2.90 rate per mile, that's a decent rate per mile, right? Just because it's a decent rate per mile doesn't mean you don't negotiate. You always add something, even if it's a good rate per mile, you're just not going to push as hard. Does that make sense? Because if you push too hard on a good price paying load already, the broker is going to be like, nah, you're out of here, and they'll give it to someone else. So the brokers are also not idiots. They're not. They're the mastermind behind a lot of these numbers. And for you to be able to negotiate that with them, you might, I want you guys to think of it like an iceberg. You never know what's on the bottom of that iceberg. You only see the top, right? And the margins that these brokers are making per load, you could literally have a broker that has $1,000 to play with, or $200 to play with. My husband called me today that he moved, as a broker, he moved one transaction at $1,800 margin. That means $1,800 could have been used towards the negotiation for that driver. But the dispatcher didn't know he made $1,800 from that. The driver definitely didn't know that he made $1,800 from that. So how are we supposed to push our negotiation to the max without, pushing too hard? That's a spot that you've got to gauge. And now if it's something crazy posted for like $4 rate per mile, it's already a decent price, but you still want to push more, like I said. But you really want to be in a position where you can build that rapport with the broker. So even though right off the bat, Juanisha was not talking about money, she was building rapport in that very, very short amount of time, getting him to laugh, making jokes or whatever. And not saying that you have to sweet talk all these brokers. This is just an example. But if you do stand out to them and you're not just another dispatcher that has a poor attitude, or, a lot of these brokers think we're out to get them. I don't know why, but we're not. And it's just a matter of really the situation. So I want you guys as dispatchers to be knowledgeable enough to where you can make educated estimates and quote and give estimated numbers that are competitive and not just I'd like $5 rate per mile. Like that would be great. But when you're giving competitive quotes, or you're letting them calculate, like Juanisha did today, she was telling them, she was very the rate per mile mattered a lot to her, just because it mattered a lot to our driver. And so when she told him to do the math at $2 rate per mile, he was doing the math for her, and he calculated it, and they came up with the price, and it was a done deal. But however, you could get on the other end with someone who wants to talk specific numbers, and you could negotiate $50 more or $25 more or $400 more. Okay. This all depends on the situation. And when I say the situation, I'm talking the commodity, I'm talking the distance, the locations. Are they going to a major city? Or are they going in the middle of nowhere in a dead zone? Is there a time limitation? Is there a constraint on time where they need to get there faster or whatever? If there's so many factors that come into how I'm going to negotiate. So I don't want you to think that I just have this negotiation thing down pat and I just whip out my cards every time the same way, because the truth is that every single load that's different, I consider all of those factors in how I negotiate. Because you have to be able to know how hard or how strong you're going to go in, or you might not push at all. There's not a lot of pushback sometimes. But I wish we got that call and recording, Juanisha. Okay, so any questions about negotiation?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you prefer working with a driver that only wants you as a dispatcher, or it doesn't matter if he has multiple dispatchers?
Only me.
Okay, so you go ahead and settle that at the beginning, like, you know what I'm saying? Do you have a dispatcher?
You're not gonna stop them from shopping around for other dispatchers. So you're just gonna have to show them your skills.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll find out if they have other dispatchers, because a lot of times, since you're the lead dispatcher on this stuff, a lot of the confirmations from break cons and packets get filled out, get sent to you. So you'll know. But does it bother me? No, because I know what type of work I do and I know my worth. They get stuck somewhere because they listen to somebody else. They always come back to you.
Yep. And that's a great way to put it. So for example, our internship, the paid internship, is where our drivers do use us occasionally, but that's because we're an agency and we can do that. If a driver doesn't need a load one week, we'll have a different driver. We'll maneuver. And luckily, none of us are counting on this as our sole full-time income because we're just learning. But you, as an independent dispatcher in your own business, you do want those loyal drivers who, and the way to get loyal drivers is to show them that you are worthy of helping them dispatch. Not worthy. Everybody's worthy of dispatching, and everybody's deserves to work with a good driver. You know what I mean?
Showing your work ethic, how good you do your job.
Right, and being consistent with the loads.
Yes.
Yeah,
Being
and
consistent and being somebody that's going to contact them. You're just checking on why they're doing the load. You know what I'm saying? You don't believe how much just checking on them and doing that little extra stuff makes them feel confident in you as a dispatcher. Because you called and checked on me and just asked me how my day is going. Hey, are you good on the road? I called ahead a little bit. It's gonna be raining in this state right here and stuff like that. Here's a good rest stop that you should go to go get you a shower, get you something to eat. Those little things go a long way when it comes to a carrier. And they're going to think about that before they go to try to think of somebody else and stuff. Nah, this person has taken care of me. I'm going to stick with you. Hannah got one now. Mr. Al loves some Hannah. Mr. Al loves some Hannah. I know y'all heard some of the crazy stuff he be saying, but he told Hannah, we's married. I ain't going nowhere. I'm staying with you. But I say this is because you build your rapport with your driver. You're showing them that they can trust you. You're showing them that you're going to go the extra mile for your driver. You're showing them that, guess what? You're going to negotiate the best rate possible. Don't never promise them a rate, a money sign. No, don't never do that. You just say you're going to do your best to make sure they get the best rates possible. Okay, that's why a lot of people mess up. They're promising them, oh, guess what? You're going to take home $15,000 a week. You cannot.
Yeah, I see that on.
You see that a lot on these flyers, right?
Yes, I saw a couple from 6,000 and 8,000. I said, what are you, crazy, bro?
Yeah, numbers change. One week they'll make 10, 1 week they'll make 6, 1 week they'll make 3. It changes, it fluctuates. Never promise them a certain amount. Just say you're going to do the best to give them the best service possible. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
This way you're not putting so much pressure on yourself, pulling your hair out, looking like you ain't got no sleep.
I ain't telling them I'm
I
gonna
don't sleep, but still, I can go without sleep. But can you? You know, you don't want to do that and take away. It takes away from you having your time stuff. I was on Virgin Islands. You know, I made time for myself. Like, all right, let me go ahead and do this morning, get that done. Okay, good. We're gonna spend the rest of the time laying by the water, drinking Mai Tais and drinking tequila.
Did you tell them you were dispatching from the Virgin Islands a couple?
Yep, dispatching for the Virgin Islands. I had a good time. I sure was. Had my little laptop out there working, and I had the best scenery. I had the ocean in the background. You know, this is making money as a dispatcher can be very lucrative. Yes, you're going to have to work. It's going to be hard at first until you build up your carriers. But once you build them up and you building up trust and they don't mind going everywhere and anywhere you send them, guess what? That money going to come in. You know, the horror story I had was I booked, this broke my heart. $6,000 loan. Got the rate con and everything. The driver picked it up. And he called and said, I got a family emergency. My girl called and said, we got an emergency. I got to get home. So I had to call back. And guess what? It was TQL. That doggone broker cursed me out. Cursed me all the way in. Ate me from one way all the way down to the other. I was mad. I was hot, but you know, I had to keep my driver MC authority straight because you know they can put bad marks against your MC. They be a bad grade. Guess what? Ain't nobody gonna want to work with you. So you know, I had to tell a little white lie, get out of it. Come to find out, his girl thought he was cheating.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, I lost $600 for that one load. It only took me about 15 minutes to do.
That is definitely going to have to go in our dispatch horror stories.
Yeah, girl, that broke my heart. I said, are you serious? I said, you tell your girl, your fiance that I am married. I don't want you.
Oh man. And that's happened to me too. But I've worked with a husband and wife that the husband would say yes to the loads and then the wife would say
that horror story is horror.
that's next level.
Oh my God. But you know, in this business, you're gonna be putting out fire. You're gonna be putting out a lot of fires.
I'm kind of in the mood to share the story. Do you think we should share it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I have another question?
Yeah, go ahead, Miss Smitty.
When you negotiate, and I hear y'all say about the fuel rate, right? Is there a certain way that y'all go about as far as when you negotiating? Do you look at the fuel prices before you negotiate it? Is that making sense? I just got off the day.
Making sense. You making sense. No, I just come up with a number. Look, you know, gas prices ain't going all over. Matter of fact, it's gotten higher. I said fuel, depending on where you go, could be about $5 a gallon for diesel. So you know, I don't say, oh, okay, I'm gonna calculate this much gas. No, I don't do that. I just ask for a certain amount of money. Whether it be, I want to at least never go below 2% rate per mile. You know what I'm saying? I always have my negotiation points. Have your negotiation points before you pick up the phone. And
we have a whole section on if you do our program, the internship will do a whole section on math. The math that's involved. I don't want you to stress thinking you have to whip out your calculator every time and calculate X, Y.
There's a trick brokers use for that. That could help them out.
What?
They go to the EIA.gov website. They release the gas prices for every region every Monday. So what you do is, like, if you know your truck's going to Pennsylvania, you go look at the rates and for the diesel in Pennsylvania, and then you add, and then you go by the destination, and then that's how you negotiate. That's how we get more money out of the shippers. Like we'll be like if you're going to like California, we'll be like, hey, it's like $6-7 a gallon out of there. And then you just throw that on the rate too, you know, with the mileage, you know, the rest of what they were showing, you know, but yeah, you just go by the destination or where the load's going, and you can get it off EIA. Every Monday they release the gas prices for the United States. It's Hannah, I emailed you. It's on the signature of my email, because when the shippers used to give us a hard time, we used to say, hey, go look at the gas rate. Go look at, it's not us. Go look at the gas, the diesel prices in that city, you know. And that's a trick that a lot of the brokers use, because the shippers don't want to give any money to the brokers, you know. So you have to use everything you can to get money out of those guys. They're trying to get even with truck drivers from the pandemic. You know,
COVID, because look, they ain't had no choice but to pay them the top dollar, because nobody was driving. Now they're trying to, they're trying to flip the market a little.
They're trying to claw back
if
up.
we can stop getting people taking these 40-cent per mile rates and stuff like that from their brokering and stuff, we'll be all right. These new people coming into the game, before they even get started, they're going bankrupt because they don't know the game. So once we get everything flipped back, but with flu season coming and not being able to tell if it's flu or COVID, we good.
I want to show you guys something. I'm gonna get pretty real with you. Hold on one second.
And Miss Smitty, when you negotiate, make sure you'll learn. I promise, if you take this internship, because I test like crazy. Miss Barb, Miss Shantae will tell you, I ask so many questions. I test like crazy because I want them to know numbers before they even begin to negotiate. Okay. But if you take it, you'll learn it. I promise you, you'll never forget it. Right, Miss Shantae? Right, Miss Barb?
Nobody right.
Yeah, see?
So I know them numbers by heart now.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm so glad that you guys, like, I didn't plan to say this, but like, I am super proud of Shantae. She has literally taken this internship and ran with it, and she is a go-getter. Like, literally, I have not seen someone so excited and like hungry, but willing to get back on the horse. Like Miss poor Shantae, she booked 2 loads this week that both fell through, and she was willing to get back on the horse and keep trying, because she knows that there's good loads out there and that you can get them, you know. And we just got to work with the right people and the right loads and the right brokers and the right drivers. One of those times, you're going to get that right connection. So I want to show something.
Miss Shantae been on it. I told you this before. Look, after the second meeting I had with her, I said, look, she hungry for it. She good. She gonna be good. So.
I'm going to share this with you guys.
all my ladies I taught was ready. So
Juanita,
I'm not bragging about myself a little bit, but they were ready. And they
Juanita,
showed
gonna be
off
a
at
freight agent?
internship. Huh?
You gotta be a freight agent too?
We're working on it.
Hey, you're gonna be good
We
with those
working on it.
gatekeepers. Those gatekeepers are the ones you gotta watch for, not the shipper. Get the gatekeeper, you'll be good with them. I can tell.
We're working on it. I ain't never scared now. My mama ain't raised no soft daughter, you know what I'm saying? She told me I ain't raised no little girls, you women.
Yeah, you know what it is?
Nothing.
A lot of brokers that they're gonna tell you, oh, get by the gatekeeper, this and that. The gatekeeper runs the office. That's the boss's girl. You know what I mean? So you gotta be
I'm
good
gonna
with
be the gatekeeper, baby.
it. Yeah, well, yeah. You gotta treat them like family, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm going to share this with you. So do you see this number right here?
152.
Okay.
Mhm.
152. That is included with some drivers and some dispatchers. Out of over 100 dispatchers that I have literally come across my classroom, my program, my Zoom, everything, that these guys have literally crossed my path. And I can give you, honestly, after I've been doing this a while, I can give you some real raw numbers. Only about 70% of these actually pursue dispatching past the 6 months mark. The other percent has, I don't know, like, I just am able to do some statistics based on the data that I have. And I would say not because of teaching or anything, it's just that dispatching either maybe wasn't the direction or it didn't work out for whatever reason. I don't care if it's, someone got sick or if it's, I just am not making money or whatever the reason might be. But only certain small percentage really pushes forward and still like bounces back. They get back after everything that's been canceled, or they keep trying. They're hungry to learn more. Miss Juanisha, she met with me, even though she was actively dispatching, she met with me just to touch base and say, what can I do differently? How can I improve? What can I do to be a better dispatcher? And that is like something that I admire so much, because if you are hungry for this and you're hungry for learning, and I said this earlier, it might've been on this, my Zooms are running together, but literally, if you don't this is not a $99 multi-level marketing package that you bought your little stay-at-home business that to sell Tupperware. This is not that kind of business. This is real LLCs, real business license, real numbers. We're dealing with people's income and their livelihood here. There's safety on the road. The road is the most dangerous form of transportation. You know that. Like, it is something, we're dealing with some very serious factors in this industry. And yes, things can go crazy, and we can tell you all the stories, which I'm going to share with you because there's some lessons in my stories. I'm going to share that in just a second. But I wanted to just make sure that I point that out, that you have to really decide and not commit to me. I don't need you to commit to me in my program. I need you to commit to yourself and your business. And that is when you'll see the growth, is when you see that commitment for your future business and whatever avenue that this journey might take you on. So with that being said, I will share this crazy story with you guys. So I am going to stop recording. And if you didn't get to hear this story, you need to check out our podcast.